Hey, it is Kenny for Kenny's Audiophile Record Reviews. Thank you very much for viewing my video. As always, please like and subscribe. I sincerely appreciate that. In this video, I'm going to review two great jazz albums that features two great jazz bass players. The second one I'm going to review is from a legendary jazz bass player album I think you should definitely check out. And the first one is from one of my viewers, the album from one of my viewers. When I reviewed this album, this Mccoy Tyner Joe Henderson album that features Henry Grimes and Jack DeJohnette, called Forces of Nature, live at Slugs, one of our viewers sent me a comment stating that he played with Mccoy Tyner for several years and he has an album out. He said, would I like to receive it and listen to it? So I said yes, and we changed contact information, and he sent me the album, so I thought I would review it on this channel. And the name of the musician is Gerald Cannon, a great jazz bass player, a veteran great jazz bass player at that. And the name of the album is Gerald Cannon, Live at Dizzy's Club, the music of Elvin and Mccoy. This is a beautiful cover, by the way. Now, this is not a stout and high quality cover. Matter of fact, it might be on the same level as this issue on Blue Note Records, a Mccoy Tyner Joe Henderson record in terms of quality. But it's a good cover nonetheless. I'll show you the back in front of the cover. Then after that, I'll show you the record label. Beautiful artwork in front with a great picture. This is a 2 LP stereo record issued on Wood Neck Records. I'll leave information at the end of the review where you can obtain this record, or how you can obtain this record. Great artwork on the cover. He's an artist as well. I think this is one of his works here. Nice comment by Buster Williams inside as well. He's, like I said, Gerald Cannon has a great career. Played with many great musicians like Mccoy Tyner, Dexter Gordon, Cedar Walton, Jimmy Smith, Stanley Turrentine, Roy Hargrove, Eddie Harris. He's been in many famous jazz festivals from Montreal to Montreux. I mean, this brother was like I said, a great bassist for many decades. This album again features Gerald Cannon on bass, Eddie Henderson, the great Eddie Henderson, on trumpet. What a great trumpet player Eddie Henderson is. Lenny White drums, one of my favorite drummers. I mean, he's famously on the Miles Davis Bitches Brew album. Famously played with Chick Corea and Return to Forever. This album features Chick Corea, Al Di Meola, Stanley Clark bass, Lenny White drums, the great Lenny White on drums. Other musicians of note on this record: Sherman Irby, alto sax. He's played with James Cleveland to Marcus Roberts. Sherman Irby on alto sax. Joe Lovano on tenor sax. Please forgive me if I'm butchering some of these names. I apologize. He has won a Grammy. He's a Grammy Award winner and has been on several, at least mentioned on several downbeat polls. Steve Turry on trombone. Steve Turry has been on the Saturday Night Live band for decades. And a great piano player. This is great jazz piano on this record. Great. Steve Kikowski. I hope I'm pronouncing his name properly because that brother's legit on piano. He's won a Grammy. I think he played with the Mingus Big Band and won a Grammy for that affiliation. Great veteran jazz musicians on this record, and they play like it. They play like a very cohesive, tight unit, a great jazz unit. And let me show you the label if I fail to do that before I get into the review. That is a record label. It did not come in this sleeve. It came in this paper sleeve. I prefer the audiophile sleeves because it's better for records. So I keep these handy for purposes like this. But when I listened to this record, and again, it's a 2-record set, 33 RPM stereo record. First song called EJ's Blues. That gets you in the mood for jazz, even if you're not in the mood for jazz. I just happened to be in the mood for jazz before I put this on. That is a fantabulous jazz, big band, straight ahead jazz. I should say big band, straight ahead jazz performance. It really is. This is a spectacular jazz piece, done exceptionally well in this live recording. And the next song called, I think it's Three Elders, I believe that's the song. That is a spectacularly beautiful jazz composition, very moving. You know, it's like emotional to listen to that piece. It was just an exceptionally performed, exceptionally composed and arranged and performed jazz piece, a beautiful jazz piece, one of the more beautiful jazz pieces, songs I've heard in a long time, called Three Elders. There's another song on here called Three Card Molly. And before I get into that song, I'd like to tell you that I listened to this album on two different turntables. One's a belt drive turntable, a Rega P8 turntable with a Apheta 3 cartridge. Another is that is a belt drive turntable. Also, I listened to on a direct drive turntable, a Technics turntable, SP-15 turntable with a Hana ML cartridge. My Phono stage, a Phono preamp, is a Whest. That's Whest 0.20 Phono stage. I love that Phono stage. It sounds great. I mean, it's on like a spectacular level. My preamp is a Passlabs X2 preamplifier, and my tube amplifier is a Balanced Audio-Technica VK60 tube amplifier. My speakers stand approximately 67 inches, not feet, 67 inches tall, from a company called Kindle, Kindel. They're 67 inches tall and 22 inches wide, and they're great for listening to jazz. But Three Card Molly, there's a great solo by Gerald Cannon on that particular piece, and he's in the middle of the sound stage. And because my speakers are so tall, it gives this beautiful dimensional bass performance right in the middle of my sound stage. I'm sitting in my listening chair just looking up at Mr. Cannon play bass, and that is a beautiful, it projects well on my speakers in this three-dimensional sound space in the song Three Card Molly. And my second favorite song on this record is called Search for Peace. It says here, Search for Peace, one of Mccoy's well-known classics. Now, let me tell you something. When I was sitting in my listening chair, listening to that piece, it reminded me of scenes in the movie Round Midnight, my favorite movie of all time, featuring Dexter Gordon and a lot of other great musicians like Herbie Hancock, Freddie Hubbard, and many others. It gave the ambiance, the aura of being in a set at around midnight, because it had the same vibe and groove of the music in the movie Around Midnight. I just thoroughly enjoyed just sitting back in my listening chair and listening to that piece, Search for Peace. What a great jazz record this is. I thoroughly enjoyed the album. I listened to it all the way through straight. Normally, when I listen to two record sets, I listen to the first record, leave the room, take a 15-minute break, and come back. I listen to this all the way through. And then I listened to it all the way through the next day on my second turntable. And it was a great listen. The performance is actually great. I just love the stereo spread, how you have like maybe the trumpet, like it's like it might be on the inner edge of the right speaker, maybe a saxophone, or on the other side, in between the center of the sound stage and the left speaker. The bass probably was in the middle. Lenny White's drums was in between the right speaker and the center of the sound stage. I just love the stereo spread. It was great. And it was a fantastic listen. If I were to judge the sound, I'd give the sound a 9. Not the sound, but the performance. I'll give the performance a 9.5. It's not a 10, but it's not a 9, so I settle on a 9.5. The sound's a different story. The sound, I'm giving a 9. It was well recorded. It sounded great. My only minor complaint, and it's very minor, is I thought the bass could have been more forward and more detailed, have more presence, like the saxophones or the trumpet. I just felt it just 10 to 15% more presence, more detail, so you can hear it better. But on the other hand, maybe that was intentional to have the bass a little bit laid back. But if I had my way, it would have been like maybe 10%, 15% more forward presence, more loudness, in my opinion. This album, oh, by the way, if I didn't mention this, was recording engineers were Todd Whitelock and Jamie Maycumber. Please forgive me if I'm mispronouncing these names. Mixing and editing engineer Catherine Miller. Mastering engineer Alan Silverman. This on the Woodneck record label, stereo recording. Now, this is available on Gerald Cannon's website. I believe it's $50. And there's a CD, I believe it's $20. So you just definitely want to check out. Also, and I'll leave the link to his website in the description below. And also, he did a great interview with another YouTuber that's spectacular. He goes into his, his history, how he became a musician, his trek into being a jazz musician. It's a must listen to interview. I thoroughly enjoyed the interview. I'll leave the link to that interview, if I can remember, in the description below as well. Performance, a 9.5, a sound, a 9. And let me tell you something on the side before I get to my second review. I think we as reviewers and people in the audio, the press of music should definitely review some of these records on some of these minor labels more. I know some of the major labels, the Blue Note Classic series and some of the other series, the Atlantic series, they get a lot of hype. But I think us as reviewers have to review records like that more and keep jazz alive, not only for us, the older audience like me, but for the, the younger brothers and sisters coming up, listen to jazz. We got to keep this music alive, man. And this is a good example of it. This is a good example of the need to keep the art and art form of jazz alive. Sorry if I get emotional about this, but I love jazz and I love jazz music. I love all music, but jazz has a place near and dear in my heart because of my father and my older brothers. So just consider that. But check out his music. This music is available on YouTube, probably for sure. If I fail to mention it, so I'm repeat myself, please forgive me. I don't play music on my channels because of copyright infringement issues. I don't want my video to be taken down. But I'm going to quickly mention, oh, by the way, I should mention this. If you are a musician, if I didn't mention this before, and you have a jazz record on a label, and you want me to review it on this channel, just leave your email address or some contact information, preferably email address, so I can get your information. You can send it to me. I'll review it on my channel. Either a musician on a minor label, even some of the major labels, some of the major distributors. If you want me to review a record, leave your contact information in the comment section of this video. But I'm reviewing this record. It's recorded in 1957. It's called Paul Chambers Quartet, Bass on Top. I'm going to briefly talk about this one because he's a legendary bass player. This album, it was recorded in 1957. This was issued on the Tone Poet series with Kevin Gray from Coherent Audio, the legendary mastering engineer. Reissue supervised by Joe Harley. Something you should definitely check out. What a beautiful high quality gloss cover. Show you the front and back of the cover. Inside of the gatefold. The Tone Poet series, I always have these beautiful gatefolds. The young picture of Kenny Burrell. Kenny Burrell, I think, is the first jazz club I went to. My father took me to. He took me to a jazz club in LA. Saw Kenny Burrell. I think Ernie Andrews was on vocals, if I recall. The musicians on this record are Kenny Burrell guitar, Paul Chambers bass, Hank Jones piano, Paul Chambers bass, Kenny Burrell guitar, Hank Jones piano, Paul Chambers bass, I mentioned him 3 times, Art Taylor drums. This is spectacular. Listen, what a great jazz performance. I'll show you the songs on the album. And they start off with this beautiful piece. Yesterday's, I believe, Chambers, his bass with the bow was in the right speaker on that piece. You have a few other musicians, at least 1 or 2 in the left speaker. I think Kenny Burrell was around the center of the soundstage, maybe between the center of the soundstage and the left speaker, if I recall. And the drums, piano could have been in the center as well, if I recall. But this is a really great jazz recording, a great example of spectacular bass playing by a great legendary jazz bass player. I highly recommend if you listen to this record, if you have not heard it. It is performed very well. I give the performance a 9. The sound, however, the complaint I have with this record, it doesn't take advantage of the entirety of the sound stage, especially in the middle. I think Kenny Burrell was in the middle of the sound stage, but it didn't have a lot, in my opinion, of center of the sound stage ambiance and three-dimensionality. That could have been boosted maybe just a little bit more. So I'm going to discount the sound to an 8.5. But Bass on Top by Paul Chambers is something you should definitely check out, in my opinion, on the Blue Note Tone Poet series, originally recorded in 1957. Check this one out on YouTube. If you have any one of these albums, please leave your comments in the comment section below. I really appreciate it. Please like and subscribe. I appreciate it as well. God bless, strong love, and please keep the peace worldwide.